We're back with John. And John, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. I just got back from Hawaii.
I was going to ask if that was Hawaiian
Aloha.
tan. You seem very relaxed and mellow.
I'm still on island time.
Well, aloha.
John, we have a question this week from Kyle. I don't know if it's a Kyle he or a Kyle she, but Kyle wrote in to ask about writing a business plan, and he or she is wondering how they can get their plan to the top of the pile.
Okay. All right, Kyle. So I would argue that writing a full-fledged business plan is important for you and not for your investor. So go ahead and there's lots of good books on kind of what should be in a plan. A lot on internet. In fact, don't even buy a book. Just look at the internet. But you're probably not going to be sending your business plan to an investor. What you're going to send to him or he or she is a very pithy email with a slide deck that's going to be maximum of 12 slides. But before we do that, let's talk about how you're going to get that investor to look at that email, because if you send it unsolicited, it will not get opened by any credible investor. My firm, I have a small firm, we get over 1,000 unsolicited pitches a year, and we just don't look at them. And we can't, right? And the reality is that there's a variety of filters, and the most powerful one is a referral from someone that we trust. And the people we trust the most are CEOs we've already invested in. So if one of my CEOs, and in fact, in our last fund, Fund 2, for instance, I think about half the deals came through CEO referrals. So people we'd already written a check for, people who we sit on the board with, people we know intimately. They say, hey, John, I'm going to put money in this startup. I think you should look at it. Well, that's an incredible point of validation. So how do you get that? How do you get that, Kyle? How do you get that kind of validation? Well, if you want to target the investors you're interested in. You're not going to shotgun your an email out to 100 people. You're going to look at who's invested in the space that I'm interested in. They haven't invested in a competitor, obviously, but they've shown a proclivity to do B2B SaaS, for instance, or business-to-business software as a service. Great. We know that the investor likes that. We have a list of those folks. Now I'm going to look at their portfolio. What are the companies they've already invested in? Fantastic. I'm going to pick a couple of those companies, and I'm going to reach out to the CEOs of those companies. And I'm going to reach out to them with some way that I can help them. So I'm going to look at their business, and I'm going to say, hey, Jane, you know what? It looks like you're running a co-working space. One of my old roommates from business school is an investor in those spaces, and I don't know if it's of any interest to you, but would you like me to introduce you to her? Something like that. Maybe it's not quite that profound. But I'm going to try to find some way to engage you in a way that might be beneficial to you.
Sure. Once
I've engaged you, then we're going to establish a rapport, hopefully. You're going to learn a little bit about my business. I'm going to impress you that I'm a stand-up man or woman and the kind of person that you want to partner with, and maybe we'll even get a partnership going. And then I'm going to say, hey, you know what, Jane, by the way, I noticed John Greathouse is one of your investors. I don't want his money, but I also noticed that I noticed that so-and-so is an investor. Would you be comfortable introducing me? Uh-huh. I think they're a good investor. They would be a good investor for my company. Because by then I've already asked you, what was it like to work with John? What kind of firm is that? So you're helping me vet my investor, right? Sure. You know, because that person's already an investor in your company.
Now, one of the great things about the co-working facilities is they have these mentor programs where people like you are regularly mentoring and helping with the business plan, and you could meet an angel investor that way, too.
Absolutely. And that's another great referral, right? So even if it's not one of my CEOs, that's a pretty small circle, but maybe it is an angel investor that I respect. And that's happened here in Santa Barbara. There's a number of folks that I do respect, and when they come to me with a deal, I'm going to at least look at it. Even if I feel like it's maybe not the ideal deal for me, I'll give them feedback. I'll say, here's how I might change the pitch, or you might want to talk to these folks down in LA. I'll try to be helpful even if I'm not going to be an investor. So that's a good point. That find someone that the investor respects that will walk you in the door. Because if you try to walk in by yourself, it's sad. I wish it wasn't that way, but it's the reality of the world we're in right now.
I wonder if it can be easier in a smaller town like Santa Barbara than, say, New York City, because there is a way to find a friend of a friend to get to that person you want to invest.
Yep. Yes, I think you're right. Boulder, Austin, Santa Barbara, we're kind of blessed with the fact that we are smaller, and our communities, I think, are very tight-knit. And they're much more collaborative. I've done a lot of work in the Bay Area. There's a lot of sharp elbows up there. A lot of people aren't necessarily looking to help the other person out.
So just sort of reading between the lines, and then also some business news that I recently read, which said that essentially the old-fashioned business plan is antiquated. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would, from the standpoint of how you're going to raise money. I still think it's a worthwhile exercise to do internally, because it forces you to answer certain questions. So I think what's happened is it's become an internal document as opposed to an external document.
So you yourself, who had started building your own business, in your teens, how much has this changed over the course of your lifetime? Would you have done the same sort of networking to begin your business and find funding? Or
I think it's changed tremendously. The number of tools that are available for free or almost for free are dramatic. I mean, when I was first starting out, I wanted to start a software company back in the early 80s, and the bar was so high. I mean, the amount of money you had to raise just to start a company, they weren't giving it to 22-year-olds at that point.
Just to buy a computer.
Yeah, right. That was a substantial investment. So nowadays with the cloud computing and all of these open source software like Apache, et cetera, there's a lot you can get a lot of yardage for free. And now you can go to an investor and you can actually show traction. You can show your product. You can show that it's working. In some cases, you might even have customers already. And all the deals we look at, they have paying customers. And oftentimes with very little money, they've been able to do it on Bootstrap.
They do these Shark Tank type shows every so often at these co-working facilities. Like Santa Barbara Startup recently did that.
Kyle should probably look for one of those. We have some resources on our website at coworkradio.com you might want to check out. And also, if you'd like to ask John a question, he's here every week with us, and we love it. Looking tan this week, so thanks for being in. If you have a question, please email
AskJohn at coworkradio.com.
And John, we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.